We are about to begin. We have, mashallah, 24 participants today for the writing a research paper being given by our esteemed uh, senior most executive and head of research and development of Nespak, Mr. Sohail Kibria. Let me give a brief intro. He has been He's the ex-vice president of Geotechnical Division. He's advisor, Geotechnical Division. Has been working in a lot of projects for geotech, and including and is one of the bases and backbones of projects like Bhasha Dam, Neelam Jhelum, and others. And his other endeavors are that he's advisor to Punjab Public Service Commission. He's a permanent trainer at Government Engineering Academy, one of the biggest engineering academy in Punjab. Trainer for Nespak as permanent faculty of Nespak. He's visiting faculty for FAST and UET. He's adjutant faculty for NUST, member PhD advisory board for SECOS and UET Peshawar. He's member postgraduate research advisory committee for architecture engineering department, and he is also the key member for Geotechnical Society, and he's founder member of the Geotechnical Society of Pakistan. He has been, mashallah, he has around 70 plus research papers in his name, extensive travel for projects and for the world, a vast experience. And today he has taken out time to share this experience of research paper, his knowledge of writing a research paper with all of you. So let's relearn. I know a lot of you people are majorly involved in writing research papers and trainings, but learning is a constant process, and relearning is, for our age and for our group, is the best thing right now. So I'll hand over to Mr. Sohail Kibria. Sir, the stage is yours and the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum to all the participants who are there and listening me. It's very heartening to see that a good number of participants are going to be there to listen to me on this very interesting and important topic for engineers and for all the professional staff. Writing a research paper, well, this is something which requires development of some skills, and some of you already have endeavored in this area, and quite a number of you would not have endeavored and tried writing a research paper. Let's go by the prologue. Basically, there has to be some research work at the background, or some planning for the research has to be there. And that will become the reason for writing a research paper, and sometimes also called a technical paper. There are some subtle differences. I'll throw light on that too during the course of my lecture. Anyway, since completion of the research work, everything, this is a final step. And the research paper is justifiably written and compiled only when there is some novel achievement, something new which has been attained in any form in the work. If there is not something new, then it is not worthwhile to transfer that into a technical paper of high esteem. I would not let this opportunity go without mentioning that research paper writing should not lead you to understand that it involves only writing skills. It develops and promotes and boosts so many other faculties in the professional people, like how to plan, how to be more creative and innovative. They consult libraries and read books and other papers, so that increases their knowledge base is improved. It also gives a good opportunity to read a lot, to speak out properly, how to communicate in the speaking mode, how to present it. Some of the research papers have to be presented in some conferences, others are not, which are printed in the journals. So it also tends to give presentation skills, and ultimately boosts and builds the confidence and the self-esteem. Uh, for Nespak, since I'm speaking strictly to our engineers and our other professional technical staff, we know that these areas of skill which I have mentioned, we really lack. Most of us lack in these skills, and there is a need to develop this skill. I'm heading research and development initiative of Nespak, and it has been formed recently a few months back. And we have to see that broadly under its ambit, how can we contribute to improve the capability, the professional development of engineers, and how we can increase the productivity, the efficiency of NESPAC, and which will ultimately result into saving of time and cost and improve quality. So this is a vital thing. Look at this very interesting quote said by Gerard Peel. He was a publisher, a very famous American publisher of New Scientific American magazine, and he was also awarded a very, a prestigious award, In Praise of Reason Award in USA. It's a very big award. He says, without publication, without writing a technical or a research paper, science is dead. Because whatever you have done, you have done. And if you don't publish it, if you don't bring this into writing, or if you don't present it, it will go into files, it will go into some dead data, and ultimately it will be lost. So it is imperative that whenever we do something, or whenever we have data which have some novel style, or we can create some novel idea out of that, we must write a research paper. Good for us, good for our colleague, good for the advancement of the profession. Look what Albert Einstein, the German physicist, if we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? He means to say that if we already know that what is being done, then it is not research. So research in the crux is about something about which we don't know. So it is about finding something out of the unknowns. That is the real research. So Einstein further says that how to go about that imagination. The background of the research, which culminates into writing of a research paper, is imagination. Imagination is the highest form of research. It is the highest form of human intellect, vision, imagination. You can also call it planning certain things. You see, you have a vision, you you have, you see, a greater mature ideas and thinking. So that is your imagination. Then to implement them is something, you see, to be done collectively by so many people. In this lecture, mainly what I will be talking about is I'll be giving you a general background of this research paper, technical paper, business, what this is about. I will also draw a line between the research paper, the technical paper, and thesis, because sometimes people tend to mix up these things. And what are different types of researches, and in engineering, what could be the possible research types? Then I will also clear up your minds regarding a term called impact factor. There are impact factor journals. What is really meant by that, and what is its significance for us? Then I'll tell you that in our country, the research activity is controlled and steered by Higher Education Commission, HEC. So they have some classification of journals. I'll briefly give an account of HEC classification of research journals in which you can publish or get your papers printed. Then I'll introduce you to an excellent format for or procedure or guideline for writing research papers. It is prepared by Society of Photo Optical Instrumentation Engineers, SPI, SPI. This is applicable to all disciplines of engineering and sciences. Their guidelines are general. They are not only for electronics or optical engineers. And later on, you can Google and you can just download this document. I think this is a very good document. to give you guidelines on writing, on compiling the research paper, starting from A to Z, stepwise. Main components, what are the main components of a research paper? And how to plan to write a good paper. It is very qualitative. What a good paper is, one is to see. Then I'll give you some tips, my own guidelines on the basis of all my experience and on the basis of what is the published information, the guidelines, the tips for writing good research paper. And in the end, 10 simple rules to summarize the whole thing. Now, let's continue. Research. What is research? So, simply speaking, of course, research is an organized method to find out what you are doing to do, what you are going to do after you cannot do what you are doing now. Means to say that if you are doing something uh, and you have to, by research, find out that after this, you see how we are going to proceed. If I stop here, if I don't get across, then what further work I can do, what testing, what study. So that is all research. You see, research is basically endeavor into the unknown. No research is ever quite complete. This is said by experts. So there are always, you see, there is always a room for, you see, adding to it. Research is what I am doing when I don't know what I am doing. So that is research. That is the message that I want to give to you. That when I'm, you see, beating in the dark, you see, trying to find out some fact, that is the research. So we play with the data. Sometimes there's a very organized starting up of research, but it doesn't lead to the objectives which were really meant. This happens so many times, not only through scientists or engineers, but through academicians also. In MSc, PhD programs also this happens, that the objectives are not met. But if the objectives are not met and some finding is there which contraindicates what was supposed to be, that is also a finding. If a negative finding is also a finding, it is very much acknowledged today. The common facts of today are the products of yesterday's research. Has the people not carried out research yesterday, then we would not have known so many things today. So what we are going to find out or develop today in the engineering intellect, in the philosophy of engineering, in the methods of engineering, in materials or whatever, it will be of use to the future generations. Like we are reaping the fruit of what was done by our ancestors. Uh, let's draw a contrast between these terms. What is the difference between research paper and technical paper? I think you should imagine that research paper is a universal set. It's a big thing, and it is used to describe or contain a working paper, which is a manuscript which is unpublished. An unpublished paper, though written but not published, is a working paper. It's a research paper. A technical report or a technical paper, which is published either by the author or by his organization, by a group of people, by expert review called peer review or without peer review. So that is also a type of research paper. So sometimes the terms research paper or technical papers are interchangeably used also. So there is no harm, you see, to call it a research paper is a technical paper. So now, what is a conference proceeding? A paper which is published after usually peer review, after reviews by one or two experts, published and sometimes presented also in front of the audience. That is the conference proceeding. And a book which contains the papers, such papers, is called conference proceedings. You might have heard that, conference proceedings. And a journal article, a paper which is printed in scientific journals. So that is something which is not normally presented. It is just printed, but always carefully peer reviewed, and there are some comments, and you see the process goes on. So this is what gives you an insight on the difference between a research paper and a technical paper. This is a question to you and to all the professionals and engineers. Can you write a good technical paper? Is only command over good English sufficient to write a good technical paper? No, it's not only question of writing ability, writing good and difficult English. It's not like that. I'll let you know as the lecture proceeds whether what are the involvements, how to write a good technical paper. Many engineers, including all of you and me, do not consider themselves as good writers. And now is a question to all of you. Do you consider yourself as good writers? I think there could be a matter of self-appreciation. You might be thinking that after 10 years or 5 years or 15 years of experience, I can write fairly good. But I have a question mark on that. But in the matter of technical writing, there's a good news for all of you. You don't have to be a good writer, right? You don't have to be a good writer because we don't want an Oxford Shakespearean, exuberant, flowery language from you. We don't want that. We are not supposed to write poetical sentences in technical paper. So you have to be just adequate but careful writer who does not write ambiguously. That is the principle number one. We must write in short sentences in a clear-cut, vivid way in technical papers. In technical matters, the English should be as simple as possible. Avoid the use of idioms, phrases, and difficult words. That is the principle number one. For instance, there is a word, promptness. There is a difficult alternative for promptness, alacrity. I would not like using alacrity in technical paper. Promptness or promptitude is okay. So similarly, delay is a word. Uh, there is a very difficult alternative in English, procrastinate. If somebody writes procrastination for delay, I think it is bad to write such in technical paper. That could be good to write as a journalist or as an article is written in newspapers or in other general reading magazine. So the underlying message is that there shouldn't be any exuberant, difficult, flowery words, flowery language come out of that. So I think you would be happy that you need not to have a very good, command over English, but you must be correct in sentences, in general grammatical rules. Why do people and engineers in particular write papers? What is the underlying reason? It is quoted that there are generally two underlying reasons. One is called altruism, that is for giving benefit to others. So in this case, it is for the benefit of the profession, for the promotion of the profession. So that is the sole, it's a big objective, very good. And the second smaller objective is sometimes that self-interest. There's a passion in people. Like I have written so many papers, I can say that I have a passion for this kind of work, for research and for producing papers. And in universities and in academic institutions in the engineering, they write generally papers for another reason also, to give tangible benefit in their careers. They get promotion, they get honorariums on the basis of that. In Nespak, hitherto, we don't get any such thing. We don't get any benefit in the career or any honorarium because and this is the new trend now, and maybe after some time this kind of encouragement happens. But I can tell you one thing, that when you write a paper and present it at a certain forum, it brings a lot of good name to your organization and to yourself. So it adds to the self-esteem, and I think ultimately Earning good name for Nespak means increasing the business potential, earning goodwill and good opinion of the clients. It's very good. So it should be taken in a broader perspective, and this is a vision of your managing director too. He emphasizes that writing papers and participation in the conferences in Pakistan and abroad is very good by engineers. It builds their knowledge and it compiles their knowledge for the use of their colleagues too. So many people write papers for all of these reasons: altruism and self interest involving passion or some interest to get some benefit in their careers. So this all happens. In Nespak, there is, there is no second opinion, there is a dark. People are not tuned to writing. They're very good, intelligent people, people having very high level of expertise and good writing ability, expression ability too. But they say we don't have time. In Urdu say वक्त नहीं मिलता. Uh, I think this is all incorrect. We do whatever we have set our priority for. You see, in our human lives, you see, we do whatever we feel it is of more importance, and we don't do what we feel is of less importance. I think we should understand it's good for the business of their organization, and it is good to improve their CV and to earn respect as a professional in career. I think this is a respect booster. Writing papers is a perfect respect booster. So MD very clearly and very vividly has been telling me, because I am heading R&D of Nespak, that technical papers writing should be encouraged, and their presentation in the conferences to earn goodwill for Nespak, and automatically for the individual he will get his dividend too. So let's think on this line, that this is good for your organization, which is a bread and butter for us, which provides us salary, which gives us so many benefits, and our families run. So why not to promote the respect of our organization, our company? This is our greater benefit. So R&D cell is right in the infancy, but it has so many objectives, and one of the objectives, amongst other, is to break this impasse situation in which people don't contribute. We want to have more internal resource persons for delivering trainings also. Like I'm an internal resource person and I'm talking to you. But there are other many good people, equally good or even maybe better than me, who don't come up. So we have to prompt them, we have to encourage them. This is entirely important. So ultimately, what we are going to do is we are going to have a good knowledge base for NESPAC 2. And you see, we can have an archive in our central library, which can be very helpful for training of our staff and for training of those engineers who are having less, expertise in those areas. I have found in my long career that writing research paper is a very good way of preserving your data. I Let's look at it from a very narrow angle. I want that my data should be preserved. Like I worked on Chashma hydropower project, and that was a very unique experience for me to uh, plan the liquefaction evaluations below the underspread level, deep 24 meters below the underspread level. So how to go about the precise value of liquefaction and how to mitigate it. Then Vibro Compaction, in my experience, that was the first experience of controlling the densification of the loose Indus River bed sands at Chashma hydropower project site using deep vibro flotation techniques. So I wrote papers on both of these techniques, which I think otherwise I would have forgotten. There were some novel ideas, novel methods, how the compaction was controlled at site. It was through the current of the ammeter, which was put in the control console of the vibrator. So that was something, you see, new to learn from it, because our ultimate control was relative density. So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that when we write paper, we preserve the data not only for others, for ourselves. 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, if I need that information, it is stored there already, done by me. So it requires some effort. It can be overwhelming, yes. It requires some, uh, you see, dedication of time, personal time too, but we are professional. What good we are for if we don't do professional work with passion? Now, an engineering research paper is a paper written by professionals, like we are professionals, working professionals, scholars, and scientists who are strongly associated with the research, engineering, and information technology in general, which may be a research study. So, if you are new in this field, you can consult your supervisor. So, broadly speaking, the rules for a thesis are almost the same as for a research paper. Thesis is a research document, there is no doubt. So now let's draw a better contrast. What is the difference between a research paper and a thesis? Thesis is a document which is written by the university students under the supervision of a supervisor, one or more supervisors, and the purpose is to obtain a degree with a piece of academic knowledge, right? The research paper, on the other hand, is without any instructions of a supervisor. Normally, individuals write it. It's not a very long and elaborate document like a thesis. It's a small and relatively very brief. And you see, it is something in which the purpose is not to get a degree. So, in a crux, in a nutshell, a research paper is something which is much smaller than a university thesis. University thesis has so many different directions and so many details. The research paper focuses on a limited area. Various type of engineering researches, different types. University type planned research in which could be a lot of funding, 4 million, 2 million, 10 million like this. And an objective is defined which will be attempted to be met. It may not be met. In many university researches, the predefined objective is not met, in others it is met. That is one kind of very elaborate and funded research. Second type of research is the one which is based on the analysis of available data. Like I'm a geotechnical engineer, so I have a lot of data in a host of projects from sites, from laboratories. And I always find a direction to find something novel. So that has been a way in which the data, because of my, association with this good organization, I have always access to so much data. If I don't use that, don't use for different kinds of analysis and interpretations, which would lead to a research paper, that data would be lost forever in the file. And this is exactly what most of you and most of my other senior colleagues have been doing. They're not utilizing the data. There are no databases. The data are not analyzed from research point of view and they are wasted. The third kind of research is the research based on literature study and deduction, because there are contemporary opinions and similar work done by many others in similar conditions in different countries of the world. It's now a global village. We have access to the work done by others. So we can have some deductions on the basis of that, and that could be something novel. A third kind of paper, which is, I think, very useful for you guys to do, is to describe in our unique projects novel case histories with lessons learned. Sometimes there are some modifications to be done in the design. Sometimes we learn by virtue of our projects that some failures are there, then how to avoid those failures, etc. So I have written so many papers uh, on the novel case histories, and even in the most prestigious journals like American Society of Civil Engineers and Geotechnique and others, we can find very easily novel case histories. Case histories, description of those in the form of research or technical papers, they add to the statistics in engineering. They add to the statistics in the profession. So sometimes you might have seen that when we are doing a project, we look for some papers and some case histories are sometimes very useful. They guide us that in similar situations, this was done. So that gives us a direction. You, Nespak people, can easily work except item number 1 on item number 2, 3, and 4. I think there is no difficulty. You have to devote some time. That is the thing. And that broadens your perspective then, gives you opportunity to present those papers in national conferences, then international conferences. People invite you, you see, when you become recognized. I've been invited so many times by the organizers of so many international conferences without any expense on my part or without any expense even on Nespak. I've been invited and it has been free. Just going there, presenting the research paper, and they acknowledge, you see. So I just want to tell you that writing papers has numerous benefits. It has numerous benefits in the professional development. Uh, type of research documents now, it has some university academic angle because some of you must be improving your qualifications also, you see, like doing masters and uh, part-time or weekend programs or I don't know, maybe a regular basis, then you have to be on leave. So one is an undergrad UG thesis. Undergrad thesis is called also final year project or technical report. It's a research report, yeah. It's a conference articles, even abstracts, a summary of the whole, you see, research done becomes a research article. Then extended abstract, the papers which are which are run for which we don't have to pay. Others are some commercial journals also for which we have to pay the predatory journals. They charge you $1,000, $2,000 like that, very heavy fees. So I would say I've never printed a paper, got printed a paper in predatory journal because you see why to spend so much money. And as you read in the Google, you will find out that the quality of so many predatory journals is average. So try to write in those journals which are accepted by the profession, and then the journal which have impact factor. I will explain to you what is it. Papers in impact factor journals is also a mandatory requirement for their promotion. So there could be journals which are of a regional origin, like only a Pakistani, or a journal published only in Punjab or by UEG, for instance, or international journals. Then there is a MS thesis is also a research document. It's a big size data production. So that kind of research is meant to have a significant, a prominent, feelable improvement in the state of the art, or to propose something absolutely new or innovative. So that basically draws a contrast between different kinds of academic researches, right? Uh, the host, our host, I will ask you if there's some questions as I'm passing by, please do pass to me. Let's keep the session interactive. If there is some question put by someone, please can you read out that? If there is no, it's okay. Then I can move ahead. Our host, who is the host right now?
For the
Hello.
time being, there's no questions, but yes,
Okay.
people are coming up with questions.
Okay.
Nespak
Okay.
Scientific
Fine.
Journal shall be created. This will be okay. There's a sharing. Somebody, uh, people are sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, you have time for questions also. Do interact, share in the chat. so that we can share it online. Sir, please continue. अभी
Yeah.
questions नहीं आए.
Okay. Impact factors abbreviation is IF. IF, what is IF? There are two defined in two forms. There could be impact factor of a research paper in isolation or impact factor of a journal which has a 10, 12, 20, 30 articles. The impact factor of a journal. Impact factor of a research paper is simply the number of current year. Like if I want to see that what is the impact factor of certain paper, I will see which was published at least 2 years ago. I will see that in this year how many other citations, how many other references people have quoted in their papers of that paper, right? So that becomes the impact factor. If that paper has been referred to or cited by three different sources, so impact factor of that will be 3. Okay. On the other hand, the impact factor of a journal is calculated by dividing the total number of citations or references made by others divided by the total number of papers, source items or papers printed in the journal in the previous 2 years. For instance, if there is a American Society of Civil Engineers journal in which some papers were printed 2 years in the last 2 years, and I want to see what is the impact factor today, I will say that in this year, in this whole year, how many total paper citations are there. Say 20 papers are contained in the journal, and there have been 60 citations or references. So 60 divided by 20 comes out to 3. So impact factor of the journal will be 3, right? I think this is very clear and very easy to find out. Normally, journals with the impact factor of 2 or more are considered to be of very high value, but sometimes the impact factors are very high of certain journals, like even Nature approaches 25 or 30. Uh, our Higher Education Commission has classification of journals. It has a mechanism and it divides the journals into 4 categories in which the scientific papers, the research papers can be presented. Uh, W, X, Y, and Z category. The best category, topmost, is called the W category. So W category uh, uh, it contains a journal which are printed in standard journal citation report issued by a well-known agency called ISI, Web of Knowledge. ISI is the Institute of Scientific Information. ISI of USA is a very prestigious information source, and if the journal has a citation report there, it is there, listed there, and uh, you see, it is categorized into W category. So they are the most valued. It has having an impact factor. Definitely, its papers must be cited or referred by other authors in their papers. So W category. For university professors, some of their papers have to be in W category. Otherwise, they are not promoted. X category is just like W category, and except uh, that there may not be any citation. You see, the paper is high quality, peer reviewed, and you see it is recognized by good agencies in their archives, but it may not have any impact factor. Means it may not have been referred to by any other researcher, by any other scientist or engineer. Then is the Y category. It is also a good white paper, good quality paper without any impact factor. It also meets all the HEC requirements, except that its peer review may not be, uh, uh, except review of each paper by at least one expert from an industry of advanced country in the respective discipline may not have been carried out. You see. Uh, and Z category is the last category. Such papers are not considered top class, but they are just considered good. They don't have any impact factor, and generally their review may not have been carried out. You see, by some expert, but they are good people, good work academically. So this is how Higher Education Commission categorizes the papers W, X, Y, and Z category. So I just wanted to give you an introduction to this terminology because discussing the papers and not discussing these would not do justice. And then you can read yourself. So that is the categorization of HEC, but there are international categorizations also and categories also, like journal citation report called JCR published by Institute of Scientific Information of USA. It is called uh, Web of Knowledge. It is called. So it has its classification as W category. Journals included in ISC master would be considered as X category journals. And third is the journals abstracts uh, mentioned in the old periodical directory. If they are cited in those, then Y category. They don't talk of Z category. Higher Education Commission has defined four, and internationally there are three categories. Right now, let me show you and let me familiarize you with the very good guideline for writing research paper, writing a good research paper, scientific paper, issued by Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, SPI of USA. I just be showing you. It was difficult for me that how to present it, but I decided to show you our table of contents. Uh, can you see the contents here uh, on the screen? I think they are readable. They are though small, and this kind of slide is against the principles I know of presentation, but sometimes we have to do it. So I just wanted to put the whole of the table of contents for your big review, right? Now you can see that in the contents, I will just be discussing broadly and you see in a big way the chapters, the titles of the chapters to give you a feeling. But I will encourage you to please download this from the Google, from the net, have a copy, and if you have interest, read it. Read its different chapters. It's a very good comprehensive guideline on writing research papers. It starts from getting started, the need. Then second chapter is what should be the structure and organization of the research paper, of the technical paper. The good thing is that every chapter has a conclusion. Every chapter has a conclusion and references. So this is a very well compiled document. So here they just tell you the guidelines about structure and organize, how to organize it, and what should be the structure. What should be that in the third chapter, the language and the style of the research paper, the scientific language, not the exuberant language, and how process of thought should go. It gives you guidelines with conclusion. It also throws some light on the use of acronyms. You see the abbreviations using one alphabet for every word, so that there is an abbreviation you see based on the one alphabet every one word principle. Chapter 4 gives you guideline that how do you prepare your figures and tables for the paper, because the basic underlying principle is that they should be clear, vivid, legible, easily understandable, properly labeled, and you see they should fulfill the purpose they are meant for. If there are XY scatters, even it goes to the minutest detail, then what is the reference you see. So I think important you have to give acknowledgement also. So we cannot fix something you see without a proper protocol. Then it gives in chapter 6 abstract and title, how to write abstract and how to select the suitable title. And the principle is that the title should be in line with the whole with the text of the whole paper, and the abstract should be a good concise summary of the whole paper, summary containing almost every aspect in a very summarized one. Abstract means a summary. Another word for this is synopsis. Sometimes synopsis is also written, but it starts from introduction to the conclusion very briefly. So that is the abstract of a paper. Some conference or some journals just want abstract of your paper first to approve or disprove it. This is a very common thing. Chapter 7 is what an editor looks for editing purpose. And chapter 8, picking the right journal. If you have to prepare a paper or if you intend to get it printed or published, you have to see that where it has to be, whether it has to be an impact factor paper, journal, non-impact factor, or any conference or seminar, to the level of different. Then it also gives you guidelines in chapter 9 on what should be the letter, which is the covering letter, which goes with the paper. It throws light on, in some journal papers of high quality, what is the editorial review process. There are in journal, good quality journal papers, like in I know ASC papers, there are review articles. You might have seen also, some of you, that when the paper is there, it's put, and some articles on review, small articles, some other celebrity writers, they write, and other people's comment on those, and ultimately, finally, the paper is finally accepted. What are the ethics of scientific publication? There are certain responsibilities on the shoulders of the author before, during, and after publication. So, what are those ethics? It will authorship. So, you have to be the real author, and sometimes there are ghosts also. Paper is written by one or two or three maximum generally, but many ghost authors are attached. You see, this is a very common malpractice in universities and maybe in some other organizations too. People just to put their name, you see, they become the co-authors. So that is a bad practice, unethical. Then one whole chapter 14 is on plagiarism in papers. Plagiarism, it draws a contrast, is not only stealing or copying other ideas and figures and tables and pictures and others' words, but also repeating your own paper. It is published somewhere and you are doing it. That is also plagiarism, self-plagiarism, self-plagiarism. Then double publication to two different sources, or editorial ethics, etc. So I think you might have developed some interest. This is very comprehensive, right? The spy document. Society of is a photo optical engineering instrumentation engineers of USA. Now we are heading very closely towards our main task after these introductions. How to write a research, why to write a research paper, what are its benefits? You might question yourself. And generally people in Nespak think that it is of no use. Why they should spend their family time, or they are very busy in office. Why should they spend time on writing papers? Well, we are professionals. It's a part of professional part. It gives us direction for new findings when we read a lot. For writing the paper, we have to read a lot. Compulsory reading. I see that whenever I have to write a paper or whenever I have to deliver even a lecture, I read a lot. So, of course, that is updating of knowledge, brushing up of knowledge, and addition of so many new things in the knowledge. So, all of you can improve. as a part of, you see, what they call CPD, in which PUC gives you points. But here, without even getting points, voluntarily, you get a professional development, a continuous professional development by indulging in these activities. So as I told you earlier, writing papers is a very good source of or method of preservation of important, interesting, novel data, which I can tell you will go waste as it has been going waste. Nespak's very costly data of very prestigious projects, of very good test results and other things, it has just gone waste because we see that after 3, 4, 5 years, it's so difficult to retrieve the hard copies of the data. Nowadays, there's a trend of having soft copies, but you see, they need to be preserved and some deductions may be made out of those in the form of papers. Uh, Providing guidelines for the writer as well as the others in future. If I write a paper on some special activity, say I write a paper on landsliding, and I did some special testing there for which there is no experience available in the country so far, and I publish it, then down the line, say after 5 years or 10 years or after some time when I get a similar situation, I have my own paper, my own publication, which will guide me. I'll open that, I'll read through. So I think this is very good. And it makes you efficient and more precise in giving performance because you become more knowledgeable. You become more experienced. Knowledge gives you more experience and saves, in turn, on our projects, time and cost improves the quality. You are sitting in a meeting and you have done a lot of publication and papers. You can always defend different difficult technical arguments by your clients, by your peer reviewer or by your supervisory, I mean, consultant, review consultants. Sometimes there are top experts in the review consultancy work. Like we were confronted, very top level consultants, very experienced engineers who was supposed to review our designs for mother and child care hospital in Murray. So there was a lot of high level engineering and there was a lot of high level discussions with them. But having, I mean, done this kind of work in Nespak in which you read a lot, you write papers, that gives you an edge over so many other people. You face difficult technical meetings with ease and comfort. And that is the hallmark of Nespak. We have to have very good professionals with very good technical capability. Uh, so it spreads, of course, goodwill of Nespak and yourself. So here you see there's a question, why would I want to know how to write a research paper? इसका देखें. Learning to write a paper can be helpful later in life when, as I'm telling you, when you gain more experience. If you want to study future class, career or in a career course, learn more on the subject. So many benefits I've told you earlier too. Thesis or any research document equally applicable on a technical or research paper. So you can see in the picture, the fellow has tried to write engineer, but every time the spellings were wrong. So he said, I am on hand, and he cuts every time. I'm good with math. I'm no good in writing, and I'm good in math only because I'm engineer. So that is, in fact, a wrong concept and wrong understanding today. Engineers have to be excellent in mathematics, but they have to good in their good expression too. So how to become a good thesis writer involves, because it involves a lot of writing, and if the thesis is not well written, from not well written I mean when uh, basically its language is not clear, the messages are not crystal clear. You read it and you don't get what the writer has attempted to say, so that is very bad. The tenses are wrong, etc., etc. So The engineering students and our young lot of engineers and even some mature engineers, they have not been given this kind of training. So that is our purpose. Now, prepare yourself for the tips. Now it goes strictly towards the university type thesis, where selection of advisor has to be there, selection of topic has to be there, and you choose your writing environment, that in which environment you are going to write. Whether it's a thesis or whether this is a technical research paper, there are human constraints because when the people have little experience or no experience of doing this kind of work, then there are some constraints, some impediments. Their arguments could be to themselves or to the others. I don't know how to start. I've never done this. I don't know what different chapters expect. Well, I would require this, and that paper. I'm not getting hold of those. So how I can, without reading those, I can accomplish my research. I don't understand that word. I don't understand that word. I'm not inspired today. Let us postpone it to tomorrow. These are all delaying tactics when people don't want to work. Uh, just give a glimpse and a fast exposure to the broad components of a research paper. Basically, it needs to have an introduction. So abstract and introduction both will be covered here. That what this is about. If it is a thesis, then it's statement. If it is a research paper, then what this is going to be about and what are the objectives. Then body of the paper should contain two things. That the work which has been done, you see results, actual results of that, and then its interpretation, discussion and argumentation of the actual data. In Nespak, quite often I have access to so much data on so many good mega projects. So they are basically in the data form. There's a lot of data and results, but then I manipulate the data through my engineers who become a part of my paper writing business. They become co-authors, you see. So I manipulate the data, analyze further to find something which is in the mind. So basically, that becomes the body of the paper. I find something new and I discuss that, give argument. Ultimately, I have to conclude. I have to say conclusion and if possible, to give some recommendation for some further work. If there's some gaps in the work done by me, or if I feel that my scope was only limited to this much of work, but this much of work will add to the value of the work done by me. I can put a recommendation that in future this kind of work needs to be done also to supplement and to support and to augment further what I have done. Right? So there are broad components. Uh, Comparison between the outlines of main contents or outlines of a research paper and thesis. As you can see, there is no difference. So that's why I've been emphasizing that whether it's a research paper or whether this is a thesis or a technical paper, basically all have to have abstract introduction, background and literature review, the real work, the actual data, their analysis, evaluation and discussion, the argumentation, conclusion and recommendation. So this is common. So this should be always your basic outline in every kind of research work, every kind of research or technical paper. Now, these are the differences. A research paper has limited space. It may be 6, 8, 10 pages generally long. Sometimes in international journals, they allow you 4 pages only, 2 columns per page, 4 pages, like the proceedings of the International Conference of International Society for Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, normally they limit the number of pages per paper, like 4 pages including figures, everything. But for thesis, there is no limitation prescribed as such. Could be 100 pages, sometimes I've seen thesis of 300 pages. The research paper focuses on a narrow area of special context, whereas thesis goes broad. Uh, the research paper tackles a specific question and gives recommendations, a novel recommendation for that, whereas thesis goes broad, large number of questions may be answered. Again, since there have been different authors and different opinions on the contents of research papers, so this is another opinion. I will be showing you many opinions which go hand in hand. Basically, it's the same. You see introduction, methodology, objectives, result and discussion, conclusions, and future recommendations. So this is describing almost the same thing. Many of the journals and many of the conference organizers, they spell out their specific requirements for writing a research paper about the format, about the contents, about the format, about even the font, about the type of figures, etc. So, in those cases, we have to stick to the specified format, that whatever is given, it has to be complied with. So here you see this is a meme kind of thing. You can see come up research paper writing process, very simply explained. Come up with that topic or idea or question, do research on that, find out something, and develop a thesis outline, write and then edit, review, and then write a draft. So very simple, you see. Uh, Now I want to talk something on the language and the style. According to Matthew Arnold, have something to say. If you have something to say, so and you say it as clearly as you can. If you have something to say, spell it out, write it down as clearly as you can. This is the only secret of style of a paper. I think you got it. I've been emphasizing on this that the language of the research paper has to be as unambiguous as possible. That is possible only when you write short, broken down sentences with simple English language and with a flow, with a sequential flow. Okay, the only secret of the style is using simple language and to say it clearly. If I say something or if I write something and it is less clear, others will not understand it properly. So my effort is not there properly there. Now it is a comment and it's a cumulative world opinion. So let's listen to this with big hearts, whether we deserve it or not. Scientists and we engineers have a reputation as bad writers in general. This is a general comment. I think most of you would agree. Uh, I cannot ask you, I cannot see all of you at one time. Otherwise, had it been a class, an open session, I would have asked you to please raise your hands to tell me yes or no. So you can know yourself this is the right statement. ठीक है जी? We don't write good generally. Okay? But I don't want you to be a good writer, as I said in the beginning. I want you to be only careful writer in technical writing, in technical papers. Here you see is a graph which is regarding the authorship. There's a tendency of putting so many authors in the paper. So it is a study which has been made by three notable journals of electronic activity, GM3 they're called. They collected the data of 10 years in their three journals from 2002 to 2011. In the 10 years, they gathered that how many papers versus how many authors, so they could see that the peak is here, something like 4 to 5 authors perhaps, has been a very common tendency in their publications for the number of authors. And it has been very low, like one author in some papers, but 40 publication. So here you see more than 100 or what, 4 or 5 authors, but surprisingly, you see the number of authors touches 30. You see, yeah, sometimes in very low frequency. So sometimes there are so many unnecessarily excessive number of authors. I was at a meeting in UET, and that was the meeting of the Advanced Studies and Research Board meeting with the Vice Chancellor and Deans. So VC commented on a query that he knows a paper in which there are 800 authors. I looked at his face, you see, with surprise and astonishment. I asked him, 800 papers, writing their names would require a lot of space. How come it has been possible? I asked him whether that paper was accepted. Yes, he said. He named some journal, I don't remember. He said yes, it was accepted. And quite a few number of pages had to be devoted in the beginning of the paper to write the authorship. So I don't know. I don't believe in this kind of work, but it has been there. I think we have already discussed something, the difference between a conference paper and journal papers, because people uh, they rate the journal papers to be of sorry, I think you couldn't hear me. I'm drawing the comparison now between conference papers and the journal papers. Journal papers are considered to be of higher technical worth because they are peer reviewed more frequently by more number of authors and by real experts, international experts from academia and industry. And they also have impact factors. Most of them have impact factors. Conference papers are not peer reviewed by that care generally, and they may or they may not have some impact factors. But one thing which is giving conference papers an edge to the journal papers is that in journal papers there is no opportunity to present the paper by the author physically before the audience. In the case of conference paper, the requirement, generally the requirement is that the author will come in person, author will come in person and present the paper before the audience and will face their question answers live. The general time slots which is given is 10 to 15 minutes, and sometimes our sessions at Engineering Congress or Institution of Engineers, they would give even half an hour. Sometimes they give more time. But normal time in the world conferences, sometimes only 5 minutes are given. Uh, uh, I, since I belong to the geotechnical community, we run a Pakistan Geotechnical Engineering Society. This is a very high prestigious forum. We held two international conferences in last December. We gave, I think there were about 70 papers to be presented in 2 days conference in different sessions. We gave seven minutes for each presentation. Then you can imagine that presenting a hell of lot of work in just 7 minutes. So you have to squeeze it and to make it brief in such a way that the main messages they get across. So that is also an art. Presenting a paper in a conference vis-a-vis not presenting a paper like in a journal paper, presenting a paper gives you a lot of self-confidence because many people, you see, in the beginning, when you have less experience, they would fear a lot of making a presentation. The one who has presented papers is a very would be a very reasonable presenter and a very good speaker in the meetings also. In Nespak, we All of us, we have opportunities and occasions when we have to present our things to our clients, present our projects. We have to speak in meetings, you see, or we have to speak to audience on rostrum in meeting. So I think this kind of skill indirectly helps us, our professionals, to handle our projects in a more effective way where talking is involved. So I've already told you which paper is better, conference paper if there's a question, or a journal paper. So we know now the difference that so far as the quality is concerned, journal paper is considered better. But so far as the opportunity for presenting is concerned, where you get exposed to other people and you earn respect also. If you make a good presentation of a good topic in a conference, you earn respect and you become well known. In consultancy business, you develop rapport, more relationship, which is important. To be socially good is important in consultancy engineering in our profession. So conferences provide you a direct opportunity for that via your research papers and technical papers. So we have already talked about the difference between conference and journal papers, right? Now, and another way, here you read journal. What is a journal? Journal is a regular periodical publication, a magazine, a technical magazine, which is printed at regular interval. Could be 3 monthly, could be 1 year, could be 3 years interval, containing a collection of high quality peer-reviewed papers. That makes a journal. Like famous journals are of American Society of Civil Engineers. They are very famous, and there are many other forums also. Proceedings is a book contains collection of papers which have been presented at a conference and then printed in the form of a book. So that is the difference between a journal which contains peer-reviewed, high-quality, unpresented papers and the presented papers in the proceedings of a conference. And the conference is the occasion or the place where we sit and we present papers and the others are the listeners and the audience. Legally. So enough has been said about the differences between the different kind of researches and papers and research documents. Planning to write a research paper or a thesis, that is how we have to proceed. We must understand the work that we are going to do. I call it assignment. If it has to be presented, then we have to understand the audience too. The topic for, you see, out of the data or out of the research which has been done, what has to be the topic that is match with the topic which is required in the conference or which the journal authority would accept. Conduct preliminary research, you see, before writing. Data is there. Create an outline. Outline is something like table of contents. I think those who are experienced writers would agree with me that writing an outline even for technical reports is worthwhile because you, with a peace of mind in isolation without disturbance and noise, when our mental faculties are fully alive, you could sit down sipping coffee and writing the contents or outline of a paper. Then paragraph the structures and write the first draft. But remember, first draft is nothing. It may be, it should be reviewed again and again and again. So after that, introduction. Write a compelling body of the text. Introduction, text, conclusion. Abstracts. We do write many times abstract in the beginning because that is required to be sent to the conference organizers. But it needs to be amended a bit when you have written the body of the paper and concluded it to the abstract needs amendment. Then do give acknowledgement and references. So that was the story of the first draft. Then second draft, review it yourself. If you have a friend, it's a paid research paper, you can give him to give his comments, maybe a colleague or senior, because reviewing at different stages is good and beneficial because the paper is ultimately going to be peer reviewed most probably by other experts, maybe for international conferences, international experts from academia and industry. So before they find faults in the paper, and sometimes they may even reject, you must know and you must be able to correct uh, the paper yourself. You must be able to incorporate the necessary corrections or improvements, right? So revision process is never ending. When you write it, I sometimes revise the paper 4 or 5 times, and it is good. Even then, small things, you see, they come to the surface, and we are able to remove those. Good to prepare a checklist that this is what I have to do. Some people do like that. That is a very orderly way. You make a checklist that in the paper review process I will be doing this. Then you can tick, 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 tick. I will check the figures. I will check the font size. I will check this and this technical detail from the books or from some other literature. I will do this. So that is called the checklist. Yeah, देखिए in another way, very interesting 8 steps of writing a paper. It says you carry out research, or if you have some data, then on the basis of that research, you find out that this could be the best topic that I can do. Write down some notes which you may require, you see, on some aspects. Brainstorm the outline, that is the contents. Write prospectus and outline. Write it down. Write here. Start now writing introduction, body of the paper, and you see the discussions of the results and conclusion, and maybe some recommendations. So this is how different people perceive the cycle. Some commentary on choosing the topic. When data is there, research has been either carried out, a planned research, or as is in Nespak we have data. So we can choose a topic. I always choose a topic in my mind. Sometimes after some evaluations or interpretations, we come to know that this is not worthwhile. It's not meeting the objective, so I just reject it. This happens. When you start doing this kind of work, this will happen. So it should be, the topic should be of interest to you with passion in an area that you would like to learn more about so that it gives you development and improvement. It should provide you with an opportunity to explore and do original things. So, and basically it should be in line with the conference or the theme of the journal where it is going to be printed. This research jargon, what research jargon? In case of Nespak work, we have data of projects. Geotechnical domain as data, structures domain as data, highways domain, water domain, and others. See, even non-technical department like economics has a lot of data. When our finance people have a lot of data. So data, data, data. What I have seen, I was once in Shokat Khanum Hospital, and I could see that they have a very big research and development department there. And many doctors, you see, they were, you see, working there, planning the data in a more orderly way in archives. And I could see in a hall the end users, those doctors who are doing further studies or those who are interested for some research work or some papers for printing the paper, they were given access to the data, electronic data. They were sitting with comfort and they were having access to the test results of different patients and this and that. and they were archived, and the database was very comprehensive. It could be retrieved by many different options. So ultimately, we in Nespak also have to have a central archive of our big data held by a different division, which is going waste. But you see, it is a Herculean effort. It's a big, massive effort. We're right in the infancy. It is very good that we are on the track. So the research part is pretty flexible. Different people will research for a paper in different ways. It is important to stay focused. You have to remain focused at what has to be done, the objective. After all, you still have to write your research paper. Okay? So save try to save time. Sometimes we have time, at other time we don't have time. So time is important. Several key things to remember as you research. In research, you should develop the habit of skimming through. I mean, passing through or having a look at so much of stuff cursorily, quickly, jaldi. You must have the develop the habit of looking at the big write-ups and big articles and literature quickly, skimming through, so that you see that this paper has my relevant things or not. Find reliable sources. Don't ignore information and keep taking notes. So here you see a gentleman in a big library, online and physical library, and you can see headphones. You see on his ear. So it is painstaking. It is, you see, an activity which requires effort, but it has its dividends. Of course, for engineers, this is very important too. Writing process steps. Once again, in another's opinion, the assignment clarification that what has to be done. It should be very clear, and the or the generation of data, you can say in the other words. Management of time is important. When we are time tight, selection of topic out of the big data available, brainstorm, think about it, visiting libraries. Now we have online libraries available also through your laptop, and sources should be selected, and the topic should be finally finalized, and lot of reading involved sometimes in paper writing, you see, of so many small things, so relevant literature, article reading, and some preliminary hypothesis on the basis of that outline, which then comes outline. I tell you, this whole process is a basic visionary process. This requires 50-60% of effort, this one. Then outline and drafting paper. I don't think that drafting a paper then becomes a difficult exercise. It requires less time and effort. Actual time is spent here. And then finally, you see, when you are drafting paper, in revising it and concluding it, etc., that also requires some time, but the maximum input is in the beginning, this whole thing. Don't be, don't feel that you have to be a perfectionist, as I'm saying time and again. But please do care for the good grammar, and for to avoid mistakes. You see, in paper, one has to be, of course, as eloquent, as in flow as possible, and as in sequence as possible. So first draft, I think you should not be very careful in the first draft, otherwise you will never be able to write a paper. Just write it, and that is it. It will be reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. So you may look at other works also, of course. Many of you have access to other works in other research papers. So try to use your own ideas, your own words. Do get help from others' ideas, because whatever we know today is because of others' ideas. Had Newton not told us about the laws of motion, we would not have been aware of that. But today we are, you see, blessed to know so much about the laws of motion because of the work done by others, by Newton, and similarly in every area in engineering and in sciences. But we must give credit to others' words. Sometimes when we have to write uh, some idea or some words given by others, used by others in their papers or in their books, we can sometimes use double quote like this, you can see, and mention the source of the quote. In this case, we are allowed to write ditto information in the research paper. It is allowed. And sometimes we write the information not ditto, but in our words. That is also equally okay, but again, we have to give the reference, right? Sometimes we have to write something, someone's idea, in which we don't use their exact words, but we do use someone's idea. It is still important to give credit. You don't need quotation marks here, but it's important to mention where the idea comes from, right? So the basic message here is that you must give the reference, the citation, the credit. Otherwise, it will fall in the category of plagiarism. Maybe by innocence you forget, but you should not forget. Others' ideas must be respected, must be acknowledged, and their references must be given. Otherwise, there are court cases also nowadays, you see, and your paper may be, you see, rejected, or you see some serious actions are taken, you see, intellectual, stealing of the intellectual property rights. If someone is a common, something is a common fact, generally accepted by all, so if you can find the fact stated without credit in three or more credible sources, you don't need to mention where the idea comes from. So you see, this is an exception. That if the idea which you are going to use in your paper is already given in two, three, or even more credible sources, then it is not necessary that you will give citation or some reference to that. Okay, I think this is very clear. This is different from the earlier discussion. Here you see, here, this author has given 8 points for writing a successful. Now you see, I've been talking about writing a good paper, then I changed the terminology from good to carefully written paper. Here, now he's using the word successful research paper. Successful means the one which has been accepted in the conference or in the journal. So that is a successful paper. If it is rejected, then it is a rejected or unsuccessful paper. So use a unique style of writing, I mean your own language. Have a clear understanding. The author should have a clear understanding of the content. He should not say, oh, I didn't know, oh, I have to see, oh. The writing should be simple. Avoid unnecessary jargons and repetition. Don't make it difficult to understand. Develop in-depth knowledge of the subject. Use innovative ideas and ways to justify the research. This is very important. This is here if people are defeated after having written their research papers. Explain uh, different terminologies, you see, to strictly, of course, one can give acronyms and abbreviations also, bibliographies, to strictly follow. Well, I have to remove the screen from here. Just a minute. Can you read here? To strictly follow all the specifications of the approving and publishing authorities, you have to abide by their protocol, by their format, by the rules. As I told you, every journal and every conference have their own rules for the preparation of the paper. You have to abide by those. Thoroughly proofread and proofread and proofread. Every word must be read. That is really very important. Reading every word. Now, this is the author's duty. the responsibility. Tips when starting, I don't know how to start. When when you feel or some people say, I don't know how to start, how to go about. So here are tips. Understand writing. Writing means you have something to say. This is the meaning of the writing. So there is no need to be unnecessary worried about or to be afraid of. Requires a clear knowledge. If you have something to say, like I'm speaking, I have something to say and I have clear knowledge, then I think that can be written. Okay, first draft may not be that good. It should be grammatically correct, written in simple English, and it will be corrected. Writing is hard for everyone, but some people have flair. Let us try to develop flair for those who it is hard. Don't try to be Shakespeare. I already told you. Otherwise, we don't require. No good technical paper is written in Shakespearean language. Stop waiting for inspiration, right? That I didn't get encouragement. I was not inspired, and you see, there's a passive attitude. Write a technical paper, do your thing for your development, for the benefit of your company, without any and even encouragement. Develop the passion or spark from your inner self. Start with the middle. So this is what he has said. That you start somewhere. If you cannot start from the introduction, कुछ तो करें. Start from the middle. In the writing process, pre-writing, as I was telling you, that before you go into actual draft writing, this planning and visualization and preparation of outline and you see the analysis of data and interpretation and conclusions, that comes all in the pre-writing. So this is the actual massive effort, 60% it is on the average. This is the actual effort. Once you have passed through the stage, only statistically it is determined that actual writing should not consume. When you know now very clearly that what is going to be 10%. The revision process or rewriting or you see deleting certain parts and inserting certain other things and after somebody else review and comment, this may consume about 1/3 of the total effort. This is the process. But isn't it amazing that this requires 10%? So don't stop, go on writing. Some authors have recommended in their own right the order of writing the paper. You see, as is the human psychology, like when we were students, we used to attempt the easy questions. Out of the 10 or 6 questions, we used to attempt the easy questions first. So that is a principle I still stick to in writing technical reports and the research papers. The thing which can be done easy, it gives you a psychological boost that if I have to prepare 6 or 7 sections, oh, if you do easiest 2 or 3, you will feel a lot of work has been done. So start from the easy, so that gives you itself a practice. Background literature review, real work, your results and contribution become the priority number 2. Then at number 3, evaluate and discuss. So this is all the preliminary work. Then write introduction, write conclusions, and in the light of whole, finalize your abstract. Although we start to write abstract in the beginning too, but that could be called a draft abstract, and it is always modified and finalized. So this is a recommended order that you start from literature review and results and contributions, etc. I have a quiz for you, just with a lot of interest. There's a sentence. I think you know this character, Mr. Beans. So, क्या बात हो रही है? A mother beats up her daughter because she was drunk. The question out of this sentence is a matter of understanding English properly, writing English properly, and then understanding properly. Who was drunk? Anybody?
So both?
Both?
Yeah.
That is That could be one, you see. Any other person?
Mother. I think writing shows about the mother.
Mother.
Y- Yes, sir. I think mother.
Actually, now I should tell the answer. This statement is ambiguous. The problem is, this statement is ambiguous. We should write clear and unambiguous languages and sentences. The purpose is it doesn't convey clearly whether one, in which one, or whether two. You see, it is not very clear. So, yeah, it's like this kind of language gives garbad. So, in our writing, we must avoid such things. Here, there are two mothers, and they are talking to each other. Uh, one is telling to the other in a cafe, I think so. My son never writes, and it is understood, you see, by her because he is an engineer. So, engineers don't know how to write. But this is regrettable. Today is gone that age. Writing skill is needed in every facet of an engineer's life, whether your site duty, whether your design office duty, whether writing a technical paper or whether writing your routine technical reports or letters or memos and this and that. Bad English, improper terminology, bad sequence, wrong message, and reading the text improperly and reading the text hastily gives you wrong message in the mind and you start writing wrong or incorrect answer. Mind this thing please, that when we read hastily, quickly, we tend to skip over some details, and when that is the situation, whatever we write will be inappropriate or may not be to the point. So here it is written that the manuscript, which this is by Samuel Johnson, the manuscript which is generally written is both good and original. But the part that is good is not original because it is written by some other and it's a copy. And that's why it is good. ठीक है जी उसमें आधा हिस्सा कॉपी किया हुआ है and the part that is original work done by the author is not well written. Spelling mistake, grammatical, ambiguous terminology. So here writing way, he is a very famous writer, Samuel Johnson. So these are his words. So I would not say there is a shortcut. The writing skill, not only for technical paper, but for any other purpose of writing, has to be developed, has to be improved. Its habit has to be inculcated and it develops gradually. So, learn, develop the habit of learning. Think hard about the subject. Give exercise to your mind with the creative ideas and interesting ideas. Innovation is not bad. Some ideas may be weird. So they may be so creative that they may be weird and they may be dropped. Avoid distractions when you have to exercise your mind. Sit in isolation, in silence. Lock the door of your room, you see, if you are at home, or in office also, you see. For creativity, for creative thinking, your mind has to be quiet. I don't know how some people say that they can work very effectively with the music in the background. I find it very hard because then there is a distraction at every moment. Take a break. After having done some work of writing, we are human beings, take a break. Sip a glass of juice or you see cup of tea or whatever and have a 5 or 10 minutes round and come back. The experience proves and the experts say that taking a break gives better efficiency of work with better stamina and better strength. Save time for reflection, thinking. Associate with creative people because they will stimulate your minds. They are the active people. Don't associate yourself much with the passive people because the passive people will give you discouragement. You see, as the famous proverb goes, A man is known by the company he keeps. That also fits here. You become what your company is, what your environment is, what your friends are. So, if you want to get encouragement, sit with those people who can give you stimulus. Keep writing in your logbook, notice your crazy ideas. I'm saying out of box ideas. Respect your, because that is a matter of respecting your mind. If something, you see, against the common thinking comes to your mind, don't just let it go. Maybe that is the correct thing. Be quick to question the authority. This is what we lack. You see, we lack. We tend to accept what the senior says, what the great author has written. We just close our eyes and accept. Please stop doing this. Try to use your mind through alertness. Here, finally, is very good. Trust in God, trust in Allah, and think that you have done a lot of hard work. Allah will give you strength and with submissiveness, and you will succeed. You will write a good paper. Isaac Asimov was a very famous uh, American scientific fiction writer. I think he wrote more than 500 books. Some of you might have read some of his books too. He says, "Thinking through fingers. Writing to me is simply thinking through my fingers." So this is so much of he's talking of so much of practice that he has become so much expert in writing that ideas keep coming like flow, like water flow, and he keeps writing tick 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 tick. This is what he's saying. Yeah, you see, a very expert writer. After all, he is an author of 500 scientific fictions. So here you see guidelines, report writing, and technical papers. Start start on the first day. Outline. There's a crosstalk. If you may mute, please. The audience may please mute your speaker. There's a crosstalk. प्लीज इसरार साहब आपका स्पीकर म्यूट है बाकी लोग सब देख लें so outline and incubate as I'm telling you and again like for any report for research papers to prepare the outline the contents and as I told you as we have been doing as students write the easy part first. This is a very good golden principle for all of you. Always write the easy parts first so that you get into it. Write in the third person. I think you understand what is third person. Technical papers, reports are written in third person. He, she, it, like that. I, we, they. First, the first person. You is the second person. He, she, it. In the absence of myself and you, a third person. Gender neutral style. This is also another thing, huh? Yeah. Are there some questions, Mr.
Yes,
Host?
there are questions because the time for the session is ending. I'll
Yeah.
call Tahir. He'll ask you. There are 3-4 questions from the people.
Okay. First, so let me conclude. Well,
If
final questions.
because the time our total the session is going to end at 12. It's an automated kind of a time which you said. If you
Okay.
want to keep on continuing, we can have a session afterwards, sort of kind of a thing, but that will be difficult.
No, I don't want to continue. I will just like to wrap up.
Yeah.
Just, you see.
Yeah, you can wrap up. You have time to wrap up. All right.
Yeah. I just want to underline the importance of
Done, sir, done, sir.
punctuation.
Sir, we'll wait. Whenever you wrap up, we'll take over.
Okay. So I will like to underline the importance of punctuation in writing even technical English. But here, a non-technical sentence is written. An English professor wrote the words, "A woman without her man is nothing," on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard, whatever. A woman without her man is nothing. So the audience were men as well as women. So he told them, to put punctuations. Almost all of the males in the class wrote a woman, comma, without her man is nothing. Means a woman without man is nothing. So it is a very biased statement because they were male by gender. So they punctuated in their favor. The woman, most of the women wrote like this. A woman, colon. Without her, man is nothing. So now you see this is in the favor of the female gender. So this gives you the importance, how the meanings change, the words in the sentence, original sentence are the same. Putting punctuation in a different way gives entirely different meanings. So this is what I want to say, that in your writing, in your paper, you have to be very, very careful, you see, in putting the punctuation. It is no joke, I tell you. The punctuation changes, you want to say something else, the other reader will be getting some other thing out of it. So don't use long, difficult words. Sesquipedalian, I put this intentionally. No difficult words. This itself is a very difficult word. I've intentionally put it. Don't use unambiguous words and sentences. I've intentionally put a very long word. It has 28 alphabets. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. So I think if you read it, you are lost. Independently establish, establishment, disestablishment, okay, anti-disestablishment. So you could mean it. If you check in the dictionary, though it is a group of those people uh, which were against the separation of the government from the church in England in 19th century. The word comes from there. But it has, the way it has been written, it makes it so difficult to comprehend. So English has to be grammatically correct. Uh, well, I think in the end, I will recommend this kind of format for all kinds of technical papers. Title page, abstract, table of contents, introduction, background, summary of that, methodology, result and discussion, and your interpretations are covered here, conclusions and recommendations of further work, your appendices and referencing and bibliography. So this is a very good way. Okay, let me, I want to just, yes, very quickly, do's and don'ts. You see, this is what we should do in the research paper and this is what we should know. Keep the title brief, use active verbs, keep the title length to tell 12 words. Don't use very long title of the research paper. Use keywords. Well, uh, I'm just trying to wind up. I wanted to jump to this. I want to tell you that you see we have to give references in a proper way, and the format of putting reference in a paper depends on the organizer of the conference or on the you see administrator of the journal, scientific journal. So in the end, from the underlying research, they are connected. The paper has to tell the research. The minimum word pick the right journal of your interest where you want to publish. Be logical, whatever you say, thorough, complete. Concise means to the point. There's a difference between thorough and concise. Concise is to the point, that it is relevant to the actual purpose. Slightly artistic, be your own judge. Check your own work again and again, as if somebody else was checking your work. Ruthlessly, I would say. Test the water in your own backyard. See whether it's flowing or not. I mean, check the validity of whatever you are doing by yourself. This is the meaning of this program. Build a team of virtual collaborators that's required. So finally, before I say thank you, my epilogue for you is, are you ready now for the go? But are you ready to make a venture of planning to write some research paper to think about that? Anybody who says yes, I would like to listen some yes. Please unmute your mic and tell me yes.
Yes,
Very good. Very good. Because that proves that today's talk has been beneficial and effective. G,
Yes,
Mr. Host,
inshallah.
now some questions, G. Have 10 minutes? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We have
Welcome.
some couple of questions from the audience.
Yeah.
First question that the participants is asking that what are the qualities of a good researcher, and please also guide that can we use the project related data for writing a research paper? Do we need a prior approval from Nespak and the client?
Well, one by one, you see,
Okay, sir, please
a good,
okay give
first we'll
this
reply to this
answer
question,
of first
otherwise I
question, sir.
will
What are the
forget all the
qualities of a good
questions.
researcher?
Yeah. Uh, a good author is the one who has having more passion, not only good experience, people with less experience but with good passion, who has a good learning habit, and who can adopt, you see, the changes with flexibility, can accept his weaknesses uh, effectively. He will be the good author. You have to be very open-minded. Don't you have not to be narrow-minded. If somebody gives you opinion or idea to change something or delete something, yes, you should do that. Well, this second question is very tricky. Uh, Whether we require prior approval of Nespak or any other authority. Normally, when we are not working on a sensitive project, like Nespak is handling many sensitive projects like Atomic Energy Commission or armies or Air Force or some other important works which are declared sensitive, uh, basically we must obtain a prior approval for those projects, but they have to be, when their data has to be used, we must conceal the actual owners of the data and the actual sites and location. You see, there's a way of doing it. Secondly, the projects which are not confidential. Many clients are not open-minded. Nespak gives encouragement, and Nespak has no objection generally to that kind of projects where the data is of no sensitive nature. But ultimately, it is client's property. But if you have worked on the data on that project and are going to create something new out of it, you can share in a good way with the client that in this project I'm going to just write a letter to them that I'm going to present a paper by bringing this new novel idea, and I think it will give a boost to your department and to the project too. And it is just for the spread of knowledge, and there is no inferior objective. I don't think the client in that way will have any objection. You see, you can just write a letter, or you can just discuss with them
Okay,
without
sir. Sir,
even
one of the
writing a letter.
participant is
Yeah,
asking that in some books it is written that it is a copyright material. Can we quote a books in our paper?
can be.
Can we quote a books in our paper?
Yeah, you can quote a book when you cite a book. That is the perfect way, you see, of acknowledging others' work, of accepting, of giving credit to the other work. You can do that. Yeah. Copying the material from the book and not quoting it and not citing it, that is illegal. Next. G, next question.
RD policy about what is the Nespak R&D policy about assisting the employees for help publishing their technical paper?
Well, since R&D cell itself is in infancy, at the moment, encouragement is being given to the heads of the divisions to encourage in turn their staff to publish papers in local and international journals. And MD is having a very good vision. Had I can promise you, had the financial crunch and this corona issue, which has in fact increased the financial issues for Nespak and for other organizations too, then had it not been there, then MD was all ready and very, I mean, receptive to selecting uh, engineers off and on, those who have done some good research work, even to foreign countries to attend conferences or Nespak's expense. I think the day is not far away when financial situation will improve and perhaps a good policy in that regard will come. But at the moment, if you are presenting your papers in local conferences, Nespak can easily reimburse, you see, I feel their expenses are not that much, can easily reimburse, you see, and it has been reimbursing in many cases the cost of registration and maybe travel, etc. It depends and varies from case to case. If it's a prestigious forum, I think Nespak would not have any objection. Quite a number of times in local conferences, I have taken assistance from Nespak too. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question, sir. Can you tell me if someone present a research paper in some conference, but later or proceeding of that conference got cancelled, then what would be the status of that paper? Is it still presentable at any other forum?
Uh, how can this happen? A paper is well accepted and the proceedings are printed. Proceedings are printed normally and distributed with the conference or after the conference. So how come it will be cancelled? I think, can you please clarify why did you say so? I don't think it can be once the papers are accepted. You mean that if the conference is, you see, that is rejected, the conference is not held. If the conference is not held, and the organizing committee of the conference, if that is a prestigious committee of experts, and if the papers are peer reviewed, they can decide, even if the conference is cancelled because of some effect, that these papers have been good, peer reviewed, so they can be printed and they can be quoted there. I don't think a proceeding will be rejected. The way you have asked the question gives the sense that the proceeding could be rejected. I don't think so. Gee.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a last
Welcome.
question for today, sir. So please, can Nespak has its own scientific journal? Because this will enable all engineers of Nespak to share and publish their novel work experience. So please guide.
Well, this can be something which can be taken up in future. At the moment, Nespak engineers have to be brought to a level of encouragement to start writing papers. You see, that is the second step. Where this can be thought in the future. If the papers are accumulating and you see what we can do, and you see, at the moment, what we think is that we can create an archive in the library where we can put the papers and we can make a soft database also, you see, where we can put the papers. At the moment, this is the thinking, you see. Uh, at the moment, there is no thinking to start publishing a journal. That will be a full-fledged activity. I think consultants normally would not do this. Basically, the purpose of our research is not to, I mean, the benefit, in fact, although it is a bit narrow, the prime aim of our R&D activity is to benefit Nespak. This is, we have to be very clear about. It is unlike the R&D activity of scientific organizations or American Society of Civil Engineers, etc., etc. So this has to be further considered and thought upon. There is no, I mean, current policy about the journal in Nespak's mind. Okay.
I think that's it for today. Thank you, sir, for your time and for your sharing your knowledge and experience. And I know that you have a huge pool with you, because I think we just gone through nearly, not just all of your slides, you skipped a lot because of the time constraints. And inshallah, hopefully when things are getting better, we'll have a live session face to face with all the participants. I would suggest all the participants to please submit the form, the trainer evaluation form, which they've gotten, the link which we've shared it on the Zoom chat, as well as the webinar or group of WhatsApp. because without that, you do not qualify for the CPD points. And hopefully for the first 2 trainings, you're going to get your certificates with the CPD points so that you can get the benefit from PEC, inshallah, next week. Again, I want to thank you all for the participating. It was a good crowd, and for your valuable shares and input. And thank you, Sohail Kibria Saab, for your
Thank you very
input,
much.
and hope to see you again, inshallah, with a new topic and with more forceful and best knowledge, sharing of your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now signing off from here.
Okay. Bye bye.
Allah
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot.